Welcome to FutureFoodCast. I'm Pam Line-Miller, your host. We're a community of industry experts, food technologists, and food enthusiasts talking all about the future of food. And with that, we are jumping into today's episode. I'm so excited to have Phil Ratford here. He is a Senior Vice President of New Product Development and Innovation with Welbilt. Welcome to the podcast, Phil.
Hi, Pam. Nice to be here.
Yeah, I love your title. I think that is one of the coolest titles that I've heard. And tell me what you do at Welbilt as the New Product Development and Innovation Senior Vice President.
Yeah, no worries. So I take care of all of our product development systems within our corporation. We're a pretty big organization, now part of the Ali Group. We were acquired earlier this year. Before that, we were an organization of 12 companies, and those companies manufactured cooking and beverage equipment in different industries, ice machines, speed ovens, fryers, and all of those product categories require new products from time to time, and the systems they use to develop those new products reliably and repeatably were the systems that I created and oversaw. And on top of that, the innovation part is we have a team of people in Monterrey, Mexico that look at what we call advanced innovation or breakthrough innovation, and they take care of ideas that don't necessarily fit so well in one of our business units, or ideas that are probably outside of our business interest currently, things that we're just trying out, so we can try them reasonably low cost, and we can, if we have to fail, we have to fail cheaply.
Well, hey, that's a great idea, because you will fail when you're developing new products, right. And when you're innovating, that's just a part of it. But I think it's really interesting that, you know, a lot of times people think about the FutureFoodCast, we're talking about how we grow our food, the manufacturing of it, how we're getting it from one point to another, and the fisheries and all of that, restaurants. But you are the necessary piece in creating the food that we eat, all of the equipment that we use. And I think you're overlooked, Phil.
Well, thank you very much. And it used to be for a long time, food service equipment or commercial food service, separate from industrial food service, where it would be a factory or a processing center creating food items. We are the bit that goes between supply and the customer. So every commercial kitchen would have a part of our equipment in their establishment. And it is interesting because we always used to consider this to be a recession-proof industry. And through recent challenges, it's shown that it's far from recession-proof. We had no idea that so many restaurants through the last pandemic would be closed down, and we had some serious challenges through that, as most people did.
Right, and you have a worldwide distribution network as well, so everything was affected. What happened there?
Well, it wasn't just the distribution. We manufacture in a number of countries. We manufacture a lot in the US, Canada, Latin America, but we also manufacture across Europe and in the Middle East. We have manufacturing in northern China, manufacture in southern China, we manufacture in Singapore. Now with our new organization, we manufacture in New Zealand and Australia, manufacture in a town called Prachinberry in Thailand, and we really are all over. Big challenge for us, and it actually is still a challenge from a global supply chain basis, because we source materials everywhere. And when the supply of those materials is restricted, the supply of the methods by which you get those materials is restricted. It's a huge challenge for us, and it has been a challenge for coming up 2 years now.
Yeah, you're not by yourself on that, Phil. Practically everyone that I've spoken with has felt the ramifications, because everyone's connected. And when there's a kink somewhere in the hose, nobody down the line can get their water, essentially.
It's funny, actually, Pam. We thought we were being really smart we created a new controller platform. A few years ago, we probably launched it in 2019, early 20. It was our common controller platform. So all Welbilt appliances use the same hardware and software, which makes it easy for us to maintain, but also makes it easy for customers to learn. So when you have a suite or a system of Welbilt products, you use an ice machine, it works the same way as the speed oven, there's the combi steamer, the same icons, the same workflow, and it's very easy to use and clean. And that meant that we put our eggs in that one basket. So we had a common control architecture which used kind of modern processors and electronics that were shared by the automotive industry. So as the automotive industry came back out of COVID, they swamped the global supply of those processors and components. And here's us, but we require tens or hundreds of thousands of those a year. Automotive are buying millions, and their demand way outstripped our supply ability. So we had a challenge there, and we're still feeling a bit of it now, but it's not as bad as it was.
Yeah, well, that was a really smart idea to make it common across. So maybe you'd have those brand loyal locations that love your products and want to have all of the different pieces of equipment that they need with your product. But you have all different kinds of like ovens, for example.
That's right.
No, you just don't have one. So do they all have the same kind of controls on it? How does that?
Actually, that's kind of part of our architecture plan. So when we create our platform, if you think about our categories, speed ovens are an easy one because I ran the speed oven business for a number of years, and that we simplified it very, very quickly to reduce the number of units that we had to make and manufacture and supply and support. But then we said, look, the interface, everything the customer touched, everything the user touched, we tried to commonize from model to model and from user category, or we call them personas or user types. So it's an installer, it's a user, it's somebody who cleans it, somebody who maintains it. They all have to have the same experience. And so we made those experiences the same independent of which model you were using. And then we expanded that from speed ovens into combi steamers. So the combi steamer user experience is similar as well. And we're rolling into fryers as well. So if you use a FryMaster fryer, the look and feel of the touchscreen controller will be the same. So the same icons in the same place on the screen, the same user flow. And then that's the same on some of our deck ovens for Garland as well. You look, we have a touchscreen version of the convection ovens, and that has a very similar user feel. And on the new conveyor ovens from Lincoln, it's the same. The conveyor imagery looks like it could be on a Merrychef. So the customers, the users, the installers and the maintainers, they get the same experience. And when they use one, they should be able to use another.
So interesting. It's kind of like economies of scale for the end buyer, training wise and all of that, for all the different pieces of activity that need to be associated with that equipment.
Consider how we have a shortage of people in many of our industries.
Yes,
and when
we do.
when we have the life cycle of a product is more than us making and selling and installing a product. It starts all the way back at how we're going to design it so it's as clean as it can be. Our factory, we consider the life of our employees when they put it together, that they're comfortable, they have a good environment. But that takes it all the way through to recycling at the end. Some of our facilities, they take back products they sold many years ago and they are responsible for recycling them. So we have the full loop of control over that appliance. And when we make it one way, we sell it, we deliver it, we install it, and we maintain it through the life. Then we take it away at the end of its life and we break it up and we recycle it. So we own the whole product life cycle.
Wow. So that's a really full service. When you sell a product, you're not finished with that customer. You're really with them.
And that's where lifetime relationships with major customers happen. Let's say there's a large convenience store chain in the US, in the northeastern part of the US. They've had 3 generations of the same product from us. The first one, 2005. The second one, 2013. They've got the new one now, 2018. And they're going to go into the 4th version. And every time we roll out the new platform, we remove all the old appliances and install them in new estate. And it works really, really well because we have the relationship with those customers and they know if there's a problem, which there sometimes is, we will always support them in that.
Okay. Wow. And that's the way to do it, right? Mm-hmm. Your sales teams, can just work on those customer relationships and not always be having to tread new ground. Because like you said, I mean, there are some locations, especially in the commercial space, that are there and they've been there and they're going to be there, like a convenience store, great location. Right. It's not a quick turnover. It's not like the restaurant business sometimes where there's one restaurant in that space and a couple of years later, there's another restaurant in that space. And then it's still a little bit different.
So typically we break down those type of industries into a chain or a key account or a global key account or a global strategic account. Those are the accounts that they have an overriding brand identity and they sell their brand in a number of areas and they typically have the same platform of kitchen. So if it's a burger chain, they would have a way of cooking burgers, a way of cooking fries, a drinks dispenser and some sweet treats alternatives and holding and selling and things like that. But when you have a general market customer, it can be one day it can be a scratch kitchen selling seafood, and then that may go bankrupt, and then the new owners may take it over, and they may turn into a burger kitchen. Some of the stuff's the same. When you talk about the key accounts are great because they have global reach, but with global reach comes requirement for global support. And that can be reasonably tricky to deal with unless there's sufficient scale. And also with a key account, we have, I don't want to call it feast and famine, but it's you support the business continuously with a number of units every period. And all of a sudden there's a new opportunity. They want to go into a new market. There's a replacement opportunity. Then you have a huge bulk of orders, and with scale comes complexity. So a business like a combi steamer business may be required to increase volume by 50% for 6 months. And that's not easy because our supply chain can be 2 years long. Our supply chain of components. So then we have to then build flexibility into our supply chain. Then we have to convince our suppliers that we are the right partner, and then they need to believe our ethos as well. They need to be able to support these booms and these busts.
Yeah, trying to get different kind of customers. But so you have customers that come to you and say, we need a piece of equipment that does this. The simple ones are that we're familiar with: microwaves, ovens, fryers that you were mentioning. But do you also create things that you're then going to sell, or create things that a customer comes to you and says, this doesn't exist yet, but here's what we want? Like,
yeah, we do. Yeah, well, it's quite nice actually because we've got a decent amount of scale. Our combined sales are maybe $4 or $5 billion, so we do sell a lot of equipment. So if a major customer has a concept that they would like a partner to support, they would come to us. Well, there are a few I'm working on now, where major customers say, we have a concept, we want to buy. Generally, they'd ask us for some equipment which would do this, that, and the other. They wouldn't say, we're not a contract manufacturer. They wouldn't come to us with a design and say, make that for us. You'd go to Flex or somebody for that. But they'd come to us and say, we have a concept for a new type of beverage, and we would like you to help us develop and then manufacture the equipment to hold, store, dispense, dose that beverage. And we would do that for them. And then that would turn into a development agreement, and we'd fund it or they'd fund it, or we'd share the cost typically. And then we would, on the back of it, we would have a manufacturing agreement to manufacture it for a period of time at an agreed price. And then there is the other one where we have an idea. We have we have a big innovation team across our group, and from time to time we have some crazy ideas and we test them and we say, this is a new idea and we think this is going to have some legs in this market. And that's probably more difficult for us. Formally, because being part of a publicly traded company, you need to see returns to your investment, and the investments that don't have a customer attached are quite difficult to justify sometimes. Where we don't have a clear foresight, the guessing on the business case is even more guess than if it was with a customer that's linked, because you can use their forecast to build your business case. And that can be a challenge. And now we're privately owned, the challenge is slightly different. You just need to convince a smaller audience that what you're doing is the right thing. So you take your business case still and you say to our new owner, say, we would like to develop this is the opportunity, and then we agree or we don't, we take it away. But we've had a big mixture of those. If you look at the Welbilt portfolio, it is a mixture of, I don't want to say standard products, but it's standard product categories. And then there's some real strange stuff that doesn't go in any of our portfolios. Our fresh blender is a good example of that. It's a semi-automatic fresh fruit blended ice beverage machine, and that didn't fit in any of our categories. It came off the back of our blended ice machine that we started back in 2008 or 9, where you make smoothies in the machine. This was an automated version of that we partnered with a third party because with that, the biggest thing was the ingredients, because you need to support something that's a vending machine in reality within a global ingredient supply. There was the challenge there. So we partnered with a company, we developed the hardware, they developed the ingredients and the footprint of ingredients across the world, and then we made a great appliance.
Okay, and that sounds like you have just a lot of leeway to both be innovative and also meet the customer's needs. What is one of the most fun things that that we might enjoy hearing about as far as new product or creative or innovative? And
so when we're working with customers on the products that they ask us to work on, those are all super secret because they've got a reason they're keeping it quiet. And we do have some of them that are going to come out. I would say we have a really, really interesting coffee concept that's going to come out with a really big coffee company throughout next year, towards the end of next year. You should keep a lookout for that. We've been really big in nitro cold brew and cold brew dispensers for the past, must be 6 or 8 years. We've been leading the way in that marketplace because, again, in the US it's particularly big, but cold coffee is enormous and cold brew is massive, and nitro cold brew is getting just as big. So we're a leader in that marketplace, and we're working on the product in that area. So that's quite exciting. We also have a whole new range of deep fat fryers coming out with our Fry Master team, our Intuition fryer range, which is going to be the most efficient, most easy to service appliance on the marketplace. I mentioned the whole life cycle of a product. With a fryer, it's quite narrow, and sometimes stuff's at the back if you need to fix it. It's a real pain. Our Intuition fryer is completely serviceable from the front. You open the front doors, everything is in there in front for anything you need. So anybody to service it, you don't need to pull it out, open the door, and it's right in front of you. Super easy to finish, to work on and to service. So we've got things in those areas. Yeah. Our speed oven brand is just launching its new model of speed ovens, the Connex range, and there's the Connex 12 and the Connex 16, next generation high-speed ovens from the Merrychef brand. Brilliant products. The Connex 16 is amazing. You look at the appliance from the outside, it's smaller from the outside than anything else in the market, yet the cooking area is bigger than anything else on the market. It's amazing. You'll see it and you'll think to yourself, how can that possibly be right? But it's like a TARDIS. It's amazing.
Well, and when a normal person like me who's not involved in commercial equipment thinks about commercial equipment, I think, how hard can it be and how much more innovation can we have? No offense, Bill, but because there's a whole, obviously that's why I'm not in that business, right? Because you have a lot of innovation, just the things that you just mentioned and the new products. And I know you're always trying to think about now with our people shortage and also our focus on sustainability, kind of those all-in-one products maybe that might be able to, I don't know, you put the stuff in and it does things. I think when we talked before, you mentioned, where people don't really need to get involved.
That's right. I think if you think about historically where a kitchen was, you had so many pieces of discrete equipment. You would have a range and an oven and a steamer and a grill or a salamander. Now we're seeing that customers don't want all that equipment. They do want more. We're seeing, I don't think any equipment can do everything, but we're seeing that more customers are becoming willing to compromise on one of their attributes. It's when you have every piece of equipment, everything can be perfect. It's a small, discrete job. When you start combining those, you have to compromise. And the challenge is, where do you make the compromises? If you go from a dedicated steamer and a dedicated convection oven, the steamer is going to be great, the convection oven is going to be great. You make a combi steamer, and there's a compromise. And the compromise can be on it's maybe slightly bigger, it's definitely going to be more expensive, maybe it's more complicated, maybe it may have some reliability challenges. Because with every part you add to an appliance, you increase the overall component or overall compliance unreliability. It's a multiplication factor. So then we have to be, it's a simple calculation, number of parts multiplied by number of interfaces multiplied by number of subsystems. I think that's the calculation. So you multiply them up and that gives you the system unreliability. And the more you add in, the more complex it is. So we find that down that path of creating categories that do more than one thing, vending machines, for example. I mentioned our blended ice beverage machine, our fresh blender. I could see there's a time that type of machine would dispense carbonated beverage as well. It doesn't at the moment. So instead of having olden days, an ice machine, a pitcher blender, pump dispensers for flavors and a freezer to hold frozen fruit, you now have a fresh blender does all of that. Next to it is still a CSD dispenser, carbonated soft drink dispenser. And so maybe those will come together into one. So you'll have a beverage machine which does all of your cold beverages. And then maybe we'll link it with a coffee machine. So it'll be a hot and cold all beverage machine. But then that'd be quite complicated.
Wow. And that's why you're in this job, because you just off the top of your head, you're thinking about, well, here's this and this kind of machine, this kind of machine. I could see a future where they might be in combination and we could maximize both functions.
That's right. I mean, if you look at an oven generally heats something up. So I think about, what do I need that's hot? And it's normal food items that you want. But sometimes people want hot food that's a breakfast item, porridge or oatmeal people. So we've had projects where we've had customers reheat oatmeal in our speed ovens. And then that brings in other challenges because the speed oven's really hot. It's over 500 Fahrenheit. So the packaging, you bring the oatmeal in as a challenge. So then we develop new packaging. So with these customers who want these needs, we say, right, you want a solution to warm oatmeal. And then you say, okay, we've got to design new packaging to now hold that. Then you have to get it into the supply chain to the oatmeal manufacturer to bring it through in the scale that you need. Right. And then if that's a really big coffee chain that wants to warm porridge in a speed oven, that has to be supplied everywhere in the world. So then that's the challenge. And then that's all because they don't want hot water. They don't want to pour hot water into a pot of dry porridge.
Okay.
So they pre-make it and heat it. Yeah, honestly, the solve sometimes is amazing.
Yeah. But when you take like a small item or a small task, it might not seem like much, but when you take it to scale and however many hundreds or thousands of times they do that in a day or a week and across all the locations, things start to multiply out, like you were talking about when you start to multiply things out. So then you can start to justify maybe some innovation to take care of, like you're saying, pouring the hot water. I mean, it takes time, it takes a person, it is amazing. It is amazing. When you look at waste, you mentioned things, green initiatives and sustainability. Waste is a real serious problem. Every commercial food service outlet has waste. If you look at some burger chains, they cook burgers, they have a holding station where they hold them for a period of time. And then after they finish holding them, they go into the chili world. They turn into tomorrow's chili, and that's fine. So they take care of all of that. But then the buns go off. So then what happens to the bread at the end of the day? It goes in the bin typically. What happens to squirty cream when you've got a cold drink and you squirt cream on the top? A lot of the time that comes out of a can. So we need to think about that. We need to think about what happens to that can at the end of its useful life. Does it go to landfill? Is it recycled? Do we use the canisters where we screw in nitrous oxide and we make our own squirty cream? What do we do with the empty can of nitrous oxide? And then there's health benefits attached from using nitrous oxide. We know about those as well. There's so much more than just the appliance and then just the food and then the surrounding support around this segment, which makes it really, really exciting. Yeah, it sounds very fun. And I love your kind of your group that you talked about at the very beginning of our conversation, that's if you were going to fail, you can fail cheaply because you have right. Some people trying some things out and like you said, everything hits the bottom line, and so you don't want some of those trials or those innovative ideas that you're just trying to see if that's going to be a marketable thing. It is important, I think, to have an element of, I don't want to call it a slush fund, but it's an element of discovery. Let's call it discovery funds. So that's a better word. Discovery funds. Yeah. So we have a bunch of money, which is ring fenced for trying things. And so we have the team we have in Mexico, which is part made of graduate engineers and part made of apprentices. We actually employ quite a few apprentices from Monterrey Tech, which is a fantastic technical university in Monterrey. We have a partnership with them where we give them 1 year's employment as part of their university degree in engineering. So we have them for 25 hours a week. It's 5 hours a day. They come into us normally 8 till 1 or 7 till 12, or however they want to work. And they work with us and they learn about timekeeping. They learn about involving themselves in an industry that there is a requirement to do things on a schedule. They learn all those nice skills that you need to learn as a 19 or 20-year-old kid. You need to learn these things about the real world. But also we get access to their clever, smart, quirky ideas that us old people working in this for a long time, we just don't have because we're stayed in our ways. And these new kids come in and it's amazing because we really do. We change them continuously. And every time I visit Monterey, I was in Monterey 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. I met 3 more people I'd not met before because I knew practicantes, our apprentices, mm-hmm. and they just come in with their new ideas. And then as part of that, there is a benefit for us as well. Not only do we get their resource, but we also get access to the academics, and the academics will do projects for us. And those academics, they will do a project in something we have no experience in. They'll take it on, they'll run it. They may even do it as an assignment in one of their taught courses to solve a problem for us. A good one we had was nanofluids, nanotechnology in fluids. So if you add certain particulates to liquids, you can change the properties of the liquid. And you think that sounds a bit futuristic. Well, I certainly did. So I met with the professor, and
in a refrigerator, the way that you typically chill a refrigerator is you get a liquid, you pump it down, you get a gas, actually, you pump it into a liquid. As the liquid expands, it gets really cold. The typical thing of an underarm deodorant, you spray it, always feels cold. That's the natural effect of expanding gases, absorbing heat out of the air. Same how a fridge works. But that liquid, it can absorb more, it can transfer more energy if you add certain particulates to it. So we're putting these nanoparticles in this liquid, in this refrigerant, to make our heat wells that you put chilled meats in the serving line more efficient, because it transfers more heat per centimetre. It's a measurement over distance from our refrigeration system into the food that's being held. And it's like these cool projects around nanotechnology we would never have had access to if we didn't have this collaborative partnership with Monterey Tech.
Yeah.
It's
And
really
word of wisdom for other businesses out there too, because there's been a lot of talk about that whole apprenticeship used to be a very common thing, or like the training in the trades, that kind of thing, where you go and you work on problems and you're with the people that are doing that business and you're understanding what they do, how they do it. And you get to bring your, like you said, perky ideas with you and the new things that you want to try. I mean, what a great partnership, really, for both. It
is. And we do have quite a few of these people with us. And I think there is absolutely no downside to our business to exposing ourselves to young, diverse, people in our workforce. They bring up so many things. And where I can, I typically get them to travel with our business. So if the way we work in that center is we collaborate with our product lines as well. So if we're working on an appliance for our pizza oven business, our conveyor business, Lincoln up in Mississauga in Canada, I get some of them to spend time up there. So they may spend 2 or 3 weeks in one of our factories, learning the life of how we make a product, learning the skills of change control. A big engineering challenge. How do you manage change through your business? Really big engineering challenge typically. So they learn that. They learn you just can't change your drawing and then there are no ramifications. These simple things that you learn through experience and training. So they get that as well. And they also get to travel. They get to travel often. Kids who've been in Mexico their whole life, sometimes they haven't got a passport. So we help them get a passport and they travel with us and we show them different places around the world. Nice. And that's what we try to do, to give them a rounded experience of real life. And if we're able to, at the end of their university degree, we give them a job. If we've got enough capacity and they're the right people, we actually engage them full-time in a full-time role.
Yeah. And we do a similar thing here too with some of our colleges. I know a lot of colleges do that, where they, you might go to school for a semester and then you work for a company for a semester. You go to school for a semester, work for a company for a semester. And it's very common that those partnerships end in full-time jobs for the graduate, like you said, should there be capacity and need and job availability out there.
Yeah, I think it's about a known quantity. If you know somebody, you know how good they are, you know how bad they are. I mean, nobody's perfect. I just think it really, really helps to get access to that semi-unlimited workforce of smart people who have gotten to a certain level. You just help them. And I think we mentioned recyclability or sustainability. It's also about our social contract, about how us as an employer, us as a really, really big company, we're a really big, really successful company. We make a lot of money, but it's about not just making money for us. It's about being responsible in what we do with that.
Yeah. And I'm really glad to hear about that program. One more thing I did want to cover with you, which had to be with, you talked about them going up and seeing how you make things, and you can't change one thing and have it, there are ramifications to maybe changing one part or whatever. And I know that has had to impact not an intentional change, but maybe an unintentional change. When the supply chain, for example, you couldn't get something that was a component.
Oh, yeah.
You're laughing.
Honestly, you just reminded me of a nightmare that we've had. I mean, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I have to think of another topic. I don't want to end on a nightmare, but let's go ahead and cover this, and then we'll.
No, it's amazing when your assembly line is running and it's all happy. It's running at the right speed. Everybody's happy. Everybody knows their job, and everybody's making good of their day. When change happens, change is a challenge in most businesses. And I always like to think about when you're scaling up or scaling down, it always has growing pains. You have to put more in of one thing or less in of another. when you're changing the system on the fly, so say we make 100 ovens a day in our factory, and say that's the number we make. In those 100 ovens are 100 electronic controllers, and in each one of those electronic controllers is 1,000 parts. So we have 100,000 parts that we fit just in the controllers in our appliance every single day. And our line is made up of maybe 20 stages. So we have 20 opportunities to get these 100,000 parts wrong. And then our supplier of those electronic controllers says, hey, got a big problem. This component is out of stock. And we say, okay, so we've got an alternative. We've found an alternative. And if you're lucky, they can get it. If not, it can be a year out. And then you say, well, this is no good. I need something in 3 months. They say, oh, it's about a year. And that's a real challenge. We did have a supplier of a simple, what should be a simple component, go from 3 months or 13 weeks to 52 weeks. And we had a 3-month safety stock, and then it went out to a year. And we're like, we've got 3 months to find an alternative, serious problem. So then we end up looking at what is the suitable alternative. And our engineering teams, they dedicated their entire 2021 to finding alternatives, because our appliances are industrial products and they have certain safety standards they should meet. And those standards are safety, electrical emissions, gas emissions, gas safety certification, all sorts of safety standards which are tested by third-party agencies. So we make an appliance, we test it to a certain standard, and then we say we think it passes, and then we give it to a third-party agency to do a formal test. And they test all the clauses in the standard. And then they say, yes, it passes. They say, but it passes based on the specification of the item you've just given us to test. And they have a list of stuff which they say, it's called a CPL, critical parts list. And then they say on this critical parts list, all these items are listed on your final report and you cannot change them. And then of our 100,000 challenges a day we have, one of those parts has changed. And we say, right, so now we have to find an alternative, make sure we can get it, test it, do a reliability analysis, and then fit it, and then take it back to regulatory approval again. So that is,
you have to go all the way back through that process.
Oh, it is
one part or two or whatever it might be.
It can be, if it is on the critical parts list, you have to send them it. You have to put it in the appliance. They have to do the testing on that component. And then the third party agency will come back and say, yes, we continue the certification of your appliance or not. And that's really tricky. And that's just one part. And that happened daily through 2020 and 2021. My goodness, wow. 2021, it was a daily problem through our whole business to maintain our supply chain to keep our products going. Real challenge for us.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And
that's right.
Because again, you're not alone in that either, but hopefully things are starting to improve.
Definitely.
Okay.
We've absolutely, I think we've come out of that. I'd say in certain categories, there are still challenges. Gas components, if you have a gas heated oven, some of those gas appliances or safety valves, those are still on some significant lead times. But I think we're certainly can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but it's a lot better than it was.
Well, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. Now, with a positive, let's think about a positive, maybe moving forward, a thought that you'd like to leave with our audience before we go. We've talked about much more than I thought we might talk about today, Phil, when we were going to talk about Welbilt and what you do with really commercial kitchen equipment. And we've just gone into a lot of different topics that really are all associated. I mean, you touch so many parts of the food business. You're integral in a lot of things that happen. But moving forward, is there something you're looking forward to? Some new things coming down the way? Some positive words you'd like to leave with our audience?
Absolutely. We talked about our supply chain challenges. We talked about products that do different things, and I always like to think about what we're going to do next, and automation is going to be the next thing we're going to see in our field. And I don't mean automation by we're going to have robots everywhere. There are suppliers of that technology, and it's quite smart. We've seen automatic burger flippers, we've seen automatic robotic cocktail makers, we've seen all these devices, and I don't think we're going to get there for a while yet, because we just don't have the feedback systems in our robotic appliances that can do the things that require dexterity of human hands and eye and interactions. without so much training that it makes it so expensive to do. We're going to see customers, and certainly big providers of food across our world, they're going to get more into automated platforms, and they're going to, step by step, they're going to be automating parts of their business. So companies like Welbilt are going to be in the middle of that because we have the scale to do that type of thing. But you're going to see, I mentioned our fresh blender. That's an automatic blended ice beverage machine. You're going to see things that do more like that for other categories. You can buy automatic French fryers at the moment that dispense and fry a portion of fries. Quite expensive per portion, so that's going to get better. But I think you're going to see that in more of these restaurants where the front of house is going to get smaller. We're going to see kitchens only. We're going to see more and more of these dark kitchens, ghost kitchens, virtual kitchens, all the same thing. But where you don't have any customer facing storefront, pickup only, delivery only, going to see more of that. And I think that's very much a US thing. The drive-through is very US centric. It's a little bit in Europe now, but it's going to be more broad. And you're going to definitely see more automated steps in the production of great food going across the business. That's really what I think we're going to go to in the next few years.
Well, thanks for giving us that heads up. We'll definitely be looking out for all that automation coming in the food service area. Well, Phil, thank you so much for being with us today. It has been eye-opening, and I hope our audience has enjoyed all the information that you've been able to share with them. We really appreciate you being with us.
No, it's been great to talk to you. Thanks, Pam.
Yeah. And this is Pam Line-Miller again. It's been a great episode.
Thanks for listening to FutureFoodCast. FutureFoodCast is powered by Farm to Plate, the leading food blockchain platform. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to stay up to date with the very latest innovations in the food industry.